So, who really pulls the strings of the global economy? For decades, we kind of had this story, you know? It was all about markets, governments, and these big international institutions. But today, well, you can see that system is under some serious strain. So let's peel back the layers and take a look at who's actually in control.
All right, let's dive right in, because the answer, it might not be what you expect. This isn't about some secret group meeting in a dark room. It's about a complex, interconnected system that's operating just beneath the surface of everything we see.
You know, this quote right here, it just gets to the absolute heart of it. It draws this sharp line between the public story we all get to see, you know, the big press conferences, the forums, and the private deals, the contracts that are actually shaping our world. That hidden story, that's what we're going to unpack.
Okay, so let's start with layer one, the system's hardware, you could call it. It's like the hidden plumbing of the global economy. This is the part that moves trillions with a T of dollars around every single day, and yet it operates almost completely outside the rules that govern the banks that you and I use. It's got this name, shadow banking, and honestly, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. We're talking about all the financial activity, you know, lending, investing, all of it, that happens outside the view of traditional regulators. Think giant investment funds, private credit, a whole world of complex market stuff.
So, just how big is this shadow system? Get a load of this number. According to the Financial Stability Board, we're talking about nearly $239 trillion. And no, that is not a typo. It is an almost unbelievably huge amount of capital flying around the globe with very, very little oversight. And to put that number into perspective, check this out. Shadow banking now makes up nearly half of all financial assets on the entire planet. It's basically a parallel financial system that's almost the same size as the entire regulated banking world combined. And here's where it gets a little scary. Big institutions like the IMF, they're starting to sound the alarm. They're pointing out that this insane, unregulated growth has created weaknesses that look dangerously similar to what we saw right before the 2008 financial crash. We're talking high leverage, zero transparency, and risk that's all tangled together. So what's the bottom line for this first part? It's that we have this massive, murky system of money that's become a core part of our global economy. Sure, it diversifies how things get financed, but it also concentrates risk in ways that are incredibly hard to track, let alone control.
Okay, so if shadow finance is the hardware, then what's the software that runs it? I mean, all that financial machinery needs an operating system, right? A set of ideas that tells it what to do. So now we're talking about the folks who create the ideas, the language, and the consensus for the global elite.
And really, there is no better example of this than the World Economic Forum. You know, Davos. Just look at this timeline. It starts in 1971 as this pretty small management conference. Fast forward to the 80s, and it's suddenly being called the unofficial Parliament of Globalization. And by 2020, it's the place coining phrases like the Great Reset that completely shaped the global conversation.
So how does this actually work? Well, the process is surprisingly simple, and it's super effective. First, you get all the world's most powerful economic players in one room. Second, you shape the language. You invent these nice-sounding terms like stakeholder capitalism, the idea that companies should serve everybody, not just their shareholders. And finally, you use that language to frame policies that, yeah, benefit global capital, but you present them as moral progress for all of us. It is an absolute masterclass in controlling the narrative.
Now, this is so important to understand. This is not a secret plot. It's an open system of coordination. I mean, think about it. When you put everyone who controls most of the world's money in the same room, they don't need to conspire. They just need to agree on what sounds reasonable, and that agreement can become global policy almost overnight. So, we've got the hidden plumbing and the narrative software. But what holds it all together? Because ideas and money, yeah, they're powerful, but they often need something even more fundamental backing them up. What's the geopolitical hard power that keeps this whole system locked in place? Well, that brings us to our third and deepest layer. This right here is the petrodollar system. So, back in 1971, when the US went off the gold standard, it made a deal with Saudi Arabia and later OPEC. The deal was simple. Oil would be priced only in US dollars, and in return, those profits would be plowed back into US government debt. This created this permanent, artificial global demand for US dollars, giving America just immense economic power.
Which leads to a pretty critical question. This system has been the bedrock of American financial power for half a century, so what happens when a country decides it doesn't want to play by those rules anymore?
Take a look at this slide. It highlights, a pretty controversial pattern.
In 2000, Iraq switches its oil sales over to euros. In 2003, it's invaded. In 2011, Libya's Gaddafi starts talking about a gold-backed currency for African oil trade. Soon after, he's facing a NATO intervention. And you can see both Venezuela and Iran have faced incredible U.S. pressure after they started exploring oil sales outside the dollar.
Now, just to be crystal clear, this idea is known as the petrodollar war theory. The theory says these interventions are basically used to punish anyone who steps out of line and threatens the dollar's dominance. The counter-argument, which is what you'll hear from most mainstream sources, is that, hey, these conflicts are way more complex than that. They involve national security, human rights, all sorts of things. We're presenting both sides here so you can see the whole debate.
So let's bring all these layers together. You've got a hidden financial system, a powerful narrative engine, and a geopolitical backstop holding it all in place. For decades, this three-part system seemed pretty much unbreakable. But today, well, it's pretty clear it's starting to fray around the edges.
So, let's just do a quick recap of the 3 layers we've uncovered. We started with the financial hardware, that enormous, unregulated world of shadow finance. Then we looked at the software, the elite narrative machine that shapes policy. And finally, the raw geopolitical power that keeps the system running.
This quote, I think, just perfectly captures the moment we're living in right now. The old way of doing things is being challenged. New powers are building their own parallel systems. And the new name of the game for every country isn't about aligning with just one system anymore. It's about diversification.
And that leaves us with this final, massive question. The world we've all known is changing right before our eyes. The rules of the global economy are being rewritten, not by a friendly consensus, but by fierce competition. So the real question isn't just who controls the system now, but who is going to write the code for whatever